Welcome to EPG Pathshala. We are going to study catchment modeling. Now, catchment modeling will be studied in 3 modules. The basic idea of this first module is to understand the modeling principles which are used to simulate catchment characteristics. We want to develop an understanding of the increasing complexities of modeling, which means we will start with the simple ones and then move to the complicated ones. And we want to develop an ability to apply modeling principles for assessing catchment problems. The major reason why that is because we know that the catchment is the basic unit wherein water is studied. Therefore, what is a catchment? So, the catchment is an integrated unit of land, soil and water which provides for the society, economy and ecosystem. Now, we do understand that the ecosystem was the major part of the catchment, but the society and the economy, those are the anthropogenic influences. Now, the catchment, of course, because of our influence, the human influence, we have industries, we have cities and towns, while there are still other catchments today which happen to be purely agricultural or pasture land or which have forests. Now, many catchments support lakes and wetlands, and there are some catchments like you find in case of South India where they are dependent deeply on groundwater. Now, some of the typical concerns in the catchments, the reason why we want to model them is because of the excessive withdrawal of surface and groundwater. Now, there are construction of storage reservoirs, be they at farm level or in the water. So, if you have these, that is, we have got these dams which are designed downstream, but upstream at the watershed level we have decided to have storage reservoirs and ponds, and these are affecting the downstream reservoir levels. And deforestation has occurred in the upstream catchments, which has led to the sediment flow in the downstream. There is pollution from agriculture and industry practices, there are eutrophication in lakes and ponds, there is reduction in the floodplain area, plantation of crops happens which are not native to a particular area, not native to a particular agroecological region. Therefore, when we have these typical concerns which we want to address at catchment level, how is it that we are going to do that? And these are some typical problems that we will talk about by the time we are ending these modules. So, what happens is that wherever we are talking in terms of a model, we must be very clear on our objectives. As in the previous slide, you saw that there are a number of problems that a catchment can have, but that does not mean that we want to study all of them together. We can have very clear objectives. Once we have these clear objectives, we have to determine which are the measurable components of the model, because we want to quantify that, all right, if this happens to be the input variable which has a certain measurable quantity, therefore the output is likely to have this measurable quantity. And once we are able to do that, then the alternative courses will be available to us, and then once we have got a few alternative courses, only then a comparative evaluation of these alternatives is possible. So, to give you an example, the input can be climate variables, land use, the water available, the population, while the output will be the stream discharge. So, when we look at a basic model of the catchment, the basic model of the catchment always happens to be the water balance equation. Now, the water balance equation is something that you all understand very well. As far as the water balance equation is concerned, it is the inflow minus the outflow, and that leads to the change in storage in the catchment. The inflow, as we are aware, can be inflow because of rainfall, it can be because of water coming from outside the catchment, while the outflow is the water that is going away, and the water that is used in the catchment, the infiltration that is happening, the amount of evapotranspiration. So, all those components constitute the water balance, and we determine the change in storage, and this change in storage could be determined by the difference in the lake levels that we have in the catchment. How much has it changed? So, this is done basically by using hydrological modeling. So, that is the basic conceptual model that we can take into consideration. Some of the common catchment models can be the rainfall runoff relationships. Now, when we look at the rainfall runoff relationships, that of course is a surface water model. We can also look at the relationship between the flow of water in the vadose zone. Now, the vadose zone happens to be the zone of aeration of the soil, and the saturated groundwater zone, which is the subsurface zone. We can also look at the surface water and groundwater interaction, the river basin modeling, as in we take the entire river basin, which is a sum of many catchments. And the modeling could also be related to water quantity and quality, their interrelationship within the catchment, because this relationship between water quality and quantity varies from catchment to catchment, and these models, as you can see, are increasing in complexity. The rainfall runoff model happens to be one of the easiest, least complex models, while as we move on to river basin modeling, it gets more complicated. So, if we look at the classification of the modeling approaches, what we find is that the model could be empirical, conceptual, or it is based on a certain physical phenomena. So, it could only be one or two variables. Then of course, these models can be stochastic or deterministic in nature. As far as deterministic is concerned, we know that we have predetermined values which we can put. Stochastic is always a range that we put, so that we are able to include the degree of uncertainty in the values, and the models can also be lumped or they can be distributed. So, the simple empirical, the models that we have, they are based on certain relationships like the rainfall and runoff model. So, what we really do in this case of an empirical model is the runoff is a constant times the rainfall. This rainfall of course could be raised to a power, or it could simply be in the form of A plus B times the rainfall. And then we establish the correlation between the rainfall and runoff in that catchment, and with the help of that we have a prediction equation, and thus we have a prediction model. So, what do I mean by that? The fact that we have a prediction model is that even if the rainfall is, let us say, we have been able to establish that R is equal to A plus B times precipitation. So, even if a precipitation of a certain amount has not occurred, but we expect that, let us say, P is equal to 10 centimeters of rainfall, which will occur on a daily basis or has occurred on a particular day. So, what will be the runoff that will be generated? So, if we have a conceptual model which is already ready for that catchment, we will certainly be able to determine what is the expected runoff. So, the catchment models can be lumped where all the storage capacity is represented in that area, or it could be distributed. The next category of models are of course physically based, or they are process based models. Now, the moment that we have process based models, they are a little complicated than the conceptual models. So, we have moved to another level of modeling, but nevertheless all our models are based on this hydrological cycle, which we are all aware of. So, we can take care of the anthropogenic activities which are happening. Based on that, we can reduce or increase the lake levels or the dam levels. As you can look in this catchment, when you take a look at this catchment, what you realize is that we have taken a few catchments together. In that, we have put a dam, a reservoir, and then of course a natural lake which is upstream, and a river which is downstream. Now, here the evaporation from the reservoir has also been taken into account. So, for example, if we want to find out what is the evaporation level in the reservoir, and is that something which is relevant, which is adding to the water vapor in the catchment, we could also model that. Now, in this case, what you see on this slide is that a catchment has 3 sub catchments. So, the catchment A, catchment B, and catchment C. This is just to tell you that even this at sub catchment level, the modeling can be event based or it is continuous. When it is event based modeling, it means that there is a particular rainfall event or a particular runoff event that we want to model between all the 3 catchments, and then taking the entire catchment together, which is the addition of A, B, and C. That we can do for an event, or we can do it on a continuous basis. We have these catchment, we have these weirs which we place at the end of A, B, and C, and we find out how the flow is affected. So what we see here in case of catchment modeling especially is that we will have parameters like the rainfall, the losses in the catchment, and what do we mean by losses? It would be the evaporation losses, and then the parameter estimation. So as far as the parameter estimation is concerned, that is we will discuss a little later. While when we assess the rainfall, please remember that this rainfall can be assessed on the basis of temporal and spatial patterns. And looking back at that catchment drawing, we know that it can be vary temporally, that means it can vary over time, and it can vary spatially, as in the spatial variation of the rainfall in A, B and C might be there, which means that the rainfall may not be uniform over the entire area, and that also is something that we need to study. So that is why we are talking in terms of the storm being subaerial in nature. That means a part of the catchment gets higher rainfall than the other part. So in case there is a reduction in the aerial distribution of rainfall, we will need to understand those factors. And then of course we have these differences in catchment characteristics that alter the catchment's response to the storm. So any model may be able to capture this aspect as well. So and again we do these in time steps. So we can do the 24-hour rainfall modeling, or we can do the 2-hour 5-year rainfall modeling. We can have different frequencies depending on the use, depending on the type of use that we want to put our model to. As far as continuous modeling is concerned, this is done over a period of time, and that is because of the vulnerability of the area. And so in order to understand the catchment, we do continuous modeling. So as far as the modeling complexity is concerned, we can discuss this in terms of the deterministic approach, where a flood event is generated with the help of a storm hydrograph for a given design rainfall event. So traditionally the temporal rainfall distribution is studied from historical records. The extreme events are chosen for the records, and the volume of runoff is generated by this is taken into consideration, and taking those highest rainfalls, that means that we have these deterministic values. We try and understand the storm pattern which resulted in this kind of flood flows. Then we can have probabilistic modeling, and as far as probabilistic modeling is concerned, here we take the sample stochastic rainfall events into consideration, and a flood frequency curve is generated using a storm hydrograph, while Monte Carlo simulation produces likely flood events. And then we can study it in this form of modeling as well. So what are the steps in modeling? So the first step is to be able to establish the model. So what do we mean by establishing the model? We should be able to identify the problem. What exactly is the problem that we want to study? Is it the flood flow? Is it the extreme rainfall event? Is it the agricultural production that is affected in the watershed? Is it the industrial watershed that we want to study? So we have to first understand the problem, and then based on that we have to determine what are the parameters and the variables that we will choose. Now these parameters are different for gauged and ungauged catchments. So what do we mean by gauged catchment? So in case of the gauged catchment, we know that gauged obviously means measured. So what do we mean by this? We have the rainfall as well as the runoff data which are readily available with us. So once we have this, we are able to do the modeling. While in case of ungauged catchment, it means that the control parameters are very difficult, because we may or may not have the rainfall, but we certainly do not have the runoff data. So in that case, how do we go about doing the simulation? But we must understand that catchment modeling is much more important for ungauged catchments, because we want to assess the situation there for which we have no other method. And once we have been able to establish the model parameters, we run the model based on the model equations that we have chosen, and then we try and validate. And how do we validate? We take the difference between the observed values and the model simulated values and find out whether so we do the validation process, and once we have done the validation process, then we are in a position to say that yes, this is a model which works. So as far as the catchment modeling is concerned, it is used to generate information on real catchments so that catchments are better managed. Now in today's times, we not only have water scarcity problem, but we also have soil loss problem in watersheds. So it is an important tool for understanding the resources of the catchment. At the outset, we must understand that the catchment modeling is not an exact replication of the catchment, but a simplified version. Now, however simple the catchment characteristics might be, yet we must understand that it is only a simplified version. It can never be the exact replication of the model, and we are of course using many mathematical processes so that we can understand the catchment better. So when we want to do holistic planning of the catchment, we must understand that even when we were discussing the catchment in terms of its subparts A, B and C, it is not the sum. We are not adding A, B and C and say, all right, this is the result. We look at it from multifunctional goals, because the catchment A, which is the sub-catchment, may be dependent on agriculture, while B has industrialized, while C has become urbanized. So it is a holistic approach that becomes important. Modeling is a modern way of understanding the catchment characteristics, and since catchments are very complex, we need to understand and support the changes that are happening there, and catchment modeling is one such method by which we can also incorporate the complex social systems and try and understand those as well. So the concept of sustainability is also something we can introduce in catchment modeling, because that is the way we will be able to preserve the resources in the catchment over a long period of time, and that is how eventually the catchment ecosystem will be preserved in spite of societal influences and human influences that have happened. Thank you.